Hey, we're live. We're
We
live.
are live. Welcome, everybody. And I hear there's a glitch on YouTube, so I don't know if you're going to be able to watch us on YouTube today. But oh, there's two people on there from YouTube. So YouTube appears to be good. Excellent. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today.
Yes.
This, I feel like, is going to be an extra special show. And I was. Because this is a really vulnerable share for Dorice today. And I was telling her, like, but this is in alignment with who we are and what we do. And, goddesses don't play small, we play big. And the story that she's going to share today, I guarantee you that she is not the only one that's had an experience like this. And by her sharing this, it's going to free up other people to know that their experience was also real, valid, okay, all the things. And, it falls under that category of let your weirdo light shine bright so the other weirdos can find you. And
I like that.
I don't know if weirdo is the right word, but I totally embrace all of my weirdness, my craziness. And, I'm like, if I shared out loud half the things going through my brain, sometimes I think I might get put in a straight jacket and put in the loony bin. But as each year passes, I become braver and braver, and I share more of that because I understand that humanity needs us all to step up and share our authenticity, share our truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to get us out of this fake programming that's out there that's telling us how we're supposed to live and keeping us small
Mm-hmm.
and keeping us powerless, and that's not how it's supposed to be.
Mm-mm.
And so I am super proud and super grateful and super all the things that Dorice is going to share her story of her experience
Mm-mm.
this weekend. And um, I applaud you. I'm sending you a big hug since we're not together.
I know. I know.
Energetically, I'm sending you a huge, huge hug. And I'm here holding space for you. And and probably all this talking that I'm doing is setting it up to be even more bigger than what it actually is.
Feeling
But
it now. Woo.
no, but
Yeah.
it, it is an important story that needs to be shared. It's, you know, the time is now. The time is now. Like, this stuff is coming through.
Yeah.
And so that's what what needs to happen with humanity, this raising of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
um and here I am at a loss for words, but raising the consciousness of humanity and
Yeah.
shifting into the life that we all know is possible
Mm-hmm.
requires people to be brave and to share. And so,
Mm-hmm.
um, yes, I'm super excited about this episode. And I think that's all I have to say at this moment. I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. All right. Here I go. Yeah, I think and pray all to receive that is listening. I mean, I know this may speak to some and it may not speak to some, and that's okay. But it's a time in my life where I'm finally stepping out of my comfort zone and sharing the things that I may only share with a few people where it's safe, like Julieta, like Matthew, like our community, where we can walk into the space and not be pointed at, wow, she's weird, or wow, that's out of this world crazy. I'm walking this way. You know, we do have that collective experience in this 3D life right now. And I really, really, truly appreciate it. And if this speaks to you, you may want to join us because this stuff happens more than not, right? I mean, each one of us have had or has had an experience that they have shared in the safe space that we create. And I applaud everybody that has the courage to do so in that space. So this was a push for me, live on the screen here, that's going to be open to YouTube for anybody to see, is putting myself out there. So I appreciate any support, and I feel the energy. Yes, and I thank you. We shout out to the goddesses because we have a little group that Juliet has so graciously called upon them for support for me, because it is a vulnerable space I'm about to share. So no accident that, this weekend was Easter weekend, right? And special Saturday morning for me occurred. And I have the actual picture that I'm going to refer to behind me. Here's Mother Mary, who has her place in my home, right in my kitchen, right next to the bathroom there. And I do have quite a few Madonnas in my house, because I was raised Catholic and she always spoke to me. I was always more, feeling a connection to Mary. And, of course, we were taught the Our Father and pray to Jesus, and I celebrated Easter and he is risen and all that. But there was always something about Mary that was special to me, always a special connection. And the same thing goes for my mother and my grandmother. So I've got sort of a maternal line of Mother Mary connection. And so no accident that I finally got here. So Saturday, Holy Saturday, we know as Christians what that means. After Jesus was taken down from the cross and his body was limp in her arms, and she had an experience of the Pietà. And I want to put that picture, if you all don't know that, the Pietà is Mary holding Jesus after he has died and taken off the cross. And this is exactly where I was in the moment that this occurred. I was standing in my kitchen. I was in an intense conversation with my love, and I was a bit exhausted, I should say. And the intense conversation, funny enough, came off of the video from Mary Lamando and Giulietta. Once they came back from Egypt, they did a lovely video about the experience. And so we were having a discussion, and I put my head on this picture right here, standing up, because he was talking and I just couldn't talk anymore. And I said, "Oh, Mother Mary, help me." And from that point on, I was just transformed. I was in a space where it wasn't my kitchen anymore. My eyes were closed. And I was in the Pietà. I was in as Mary's orientation. I was holding Jesus. He had, it dead limp in my arms. And I'm just going to try not to cry or get emotional, but I was feeling the grief so strongly, I got very emotional. I was crying hysterically, pretty much. And Matthew just stopped talking and was looking at me and came over empathetically and put his arms around me, because he knew what was happening. And people who have had mystical experiences before kind of feel the energy, and if you could say this archetypal energy that comes on so strongly. It's almost as if, you don't have control of your own body. You're in another world. You're in another place. You're not there in this 3D life anymore, and you're transported somewhere else. And that's what was happening. So I had Mary, her orientation. I became Mary. I looked down, and one side was Jesus on my right, and the other side was my son who had passed, and I had him in my arms, dying, and then once dead. So it kept flashing from Jesus to Dominic was his name, from Jesus to Dominic. And it kept flashing, 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 flashing. At that moment, and I was just feeling so much grief there was, and it's almost an angelic form, but Isis, the divine mother that came before Mary. And there are now people who have dug up enough evidence to realize that this is a lineage of mothers, of divine mothers that have come through our historical, presence. Their presence has been through so many cultures and so many lifetimes. They're threading it through, which I will get to later, as a book just appeared to me just last month about this. But Isis was the great winged mother over me. Her wings were kind of doing this flapping, okay, softly, gently, and she was telling me, you're feeling the grief. You felt the grief as a human with your son. You're feeling Mary's grief in that moment as this archetypal presence of a divine mother who gave birth to this son. You know what that is. I know what that grief is. It is excruciatingly painful. So for any mother who has had this experience, I understand the grief and I feel the grief. It's heart-wrenching, and I understand. That said, the expansiveness of my grief grew into awareness that the divine mother was giving me. She was saying to me, this grief has to be felt. This grief has to be felt, because if you don't feel the intensity of this grief right now, how it is, you're going to forget. You're going to forget the pain and the suffering that humanity is going through. All of the mothers on this planet are going through when they have lost a child, whether it be a son, daughter, it doesn't matter. There are so many going through this right now in the war zone across the ocean. We know this. Children are dying, young men are dying, young women are dying. There is so much grief and suffering. And that was what I was feeling in an expansive way, for humanity in this world. And I continued to cry. And I continued to cry as it came out of me. So did a language that I was unaware that I could produce and articulate. And I think I know the Catholics know about speaking in tongues. Okay. Some people call it light language, right? Some people call it transmissions and downloads from, right? Whether you want to believe in the people of the stars, or whether you want to believe that it comes from consciousness or archetypes, you name it, it's a different language. And, some people don't understand it, but we feel it. So there's a meaning to it. And the meaning was the grief and the suffering of humanity coming through this language. And Matthew was my witness to this, and he heard it. And he was there holding me as I was pouring out this grief and pouring out this language that I was receiving in a transmission. It's hard almost to put into words. And Julietta, I know you know this. It's like you get things in these frequencies and these energies, and you try to articulate them. And right now I'm even having some issue doing it, but I'm trying my best. So
you got this.
I'm trying. Yeah. So with Mother Mary's help back here, I'm calling on her. And really I did. That's why she came. But the transmission and the message was that myself, as a starting point, needs to remember the grief, because I have to understand that compassion is called upon to deal with this level of grief. That level of grief needs an equal or more tremendous, impactful, compassionate response. And so I understand now why I have to hold that grief and that feeling, so that I can give that level of response in my compassionate ways, whether I am just dealing with somebody in pain, and sometimes, as a therapist we do, or I'm dealing with an emotional outpouring of whatever pain and suffering somebody's going through in a conversation, I've got to hold that level of compassion for humanity. And so the transmission continued on a global level for humanity, for me to go out and say these things and present this way, that it's that important for us to move forward with compassion for humanity. So this is why I said to Julietta, once this came to me on Saturday morning, when I got to her at Sweat Lodge at her home on Saturday evening, I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do this. It has to be the next show. It has to be, because I'm getting this and I can't come out of it. And it's hitting me in my chest, and it's here heavy in my chest. It was as if I was back in 1992 when my son died and I was just leaving the funeral. It's hit me that hard. It's staying with me that hard. And I know it's not all mine. I know it's not, but it's the Divine Mother's presence. And it's Isis and all the divine mothers that we know of. And if you connect to Mother Gaia, if you connect to Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, how many divine mother presence do we have out there that we can call upon and connect to? And it's no accident I became, back into Julietta's life. And we are on this mission to bring back the divine feminine, because she is needed and she's reaching us so intensely. Sekhmet for Julietta, Isis for me, and Mother Mary. They're coming in, and their energies are coming into us to move humanity in a direction that we need to go to heal. We're not just doing this just to kind of have fun and talk about these things so incidentally. We're not. We're doing this with magnitude. We're doing this with intensity. We're doing this as if our life depends upon it, that, humanity depends upon it. We're here and we joke around. It's like, okay, we took the vow of the Bodhisattva. Here we are. We're doing it. We're speaking up. We're using our energy. We're using our voice. We're using whatever we can to move our immediate people and relationships in a direction, and we want it to expand. That's why we're in this format on the internet, trying to push it out there. It's not for money. It's not a joke. We're not just here twiddling our thumbs and having conversations just because we feel like it. And I know I sound intense, but it's not me. It's her back there. I feel like I was preparing for a Sermon on the Mount. That's how intense I was.
I do want to speak a little bit to your intensity, because even before, you came to Sweat Lodge Saturday night and I saw you in person, but you texted me that morning, and I was actually here at my office setting up. I had a private, I'll call it a cacao ceremony on steroids, because it was way more than just a cacao ceremony. But I was here and I was actually just kind of sitting like in meditation, getting ready for everybody to show up. And you text me, and I opened the text, and like, I barely even read it. I just like had opened it, and I was just like sobbing. And then I'm reading it and I'm like, holy cow, this is powerful. Like I received the energy of it through the text. And I was like, for a minute there, I was like, I had to pull myself together before these women show up for this ceremony. But I was like, this is important. The other thing you haven't touched on too much that you did mention to me in our discussions about this was like, yes, there's the piece of grieving the loss of the son, but we also talked about like the grief of the loss of the divine masculine.
Yes.
That we talk about often, and we're trying to resuscitate. And which also brings me back to, I frequently talk about how back my first trip to Egypt in 2017 after visiting Isis's temple at Philae.
Mhm.
You know, that evening she came to me and she spoke about the importance of restoring the sacred feminine to restore the balance to humanity. And for any men that are out there listening, this is not male bashing in any way, shape, or
No.
form. This is not to say that women are better, but it is up to the women to come and bring back the sacred feminine. You know, women need to step out of that hyper masculinity. They need to
Yes.
step out of their toxic femininity
Yes.
and restore the sacred feminine so that the balance of the sacred masculine and feminine can be restored. So I talk about that often, but what I don't talk about as much is, I believe it was the next day or 2 days later, we went to Edfu Temple, which is the temple of the god Horus.
Mm-hmm.
And that evening, after visiting him, he came to me and was like, and yes, you need to work on women healing and restoring the sacred feminine, but don't forget the men. They need you too. And they need for women to stop pushing them down, stop criticizing them, stop belittling them, stop emasculating them. You need to lift them up as well. And so, you know, that was the piece that really hit home to me, is that
Yes.
I've been doing it to some degree, but I do recognize that I need to do it to an even greater degree, is supporting the men, is stepping into their sacred masculine energy and creating a space where it is safe for them, because so many, you know, the toxic masculinity is so strong, and so it's not even just women belittling the men, it's other men like making fun of men who are operating from a sacred masculine. And so we do appreciate every man who is supporting this journey and doing their best to rise in the divine masculine. And we talked about that quite a bit Saturday night in the Sweat Lodge. I mean, we were surrounded by men who were holding the space for that, and we appreciate that so much. And you know, if anybody's out there and you ever see something extra I can do to help support the men, I am all ears, because yes, we need the divine masculine restored. I do want to just pop up. Cheryl says hello to us, and so I just say hi, Cheryl. We appreciate you being here, tuning in, listening in, and showing up in the sacred feminine to so many of our events. We appreciate that so much.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I did want to, so you expanded it one step further, where the downloads were coming to me in that expanded way. And one of the things that the Divine Mother presence was giving me was, how are we going to heal this masculine and feminine, right? And what kept coming to me was that lead with compassion. Lead with this, because mother is grieving the separateness. Mother is grieving that separated masculine from the feminine. I kept getting that picture. It first came with Gaia, and then it flashed from Isis again. And it's archetypal, yes, but it's the energies. It doesn't matter what divine feminine that calls to you, but that divine feminine is grieving the separate of that masculine. So that grief was going on and impacted me. And it is bringing me to every situation now in a compassionate perspective, that whatever masculine or feminine I come in contact with, I am leading with compassion first. I am not looking for what's masculine and what's feminine. It's, if I have compassion and hold compassion, the energies are going to understand that we need the connection to stop the separateness, come to the unification of both. And so that was coming in loud and clear, is leading with the compassion. Because if we don't hold compassion for the other, whether it be masculine, feminine, or the energy in and of itself. We've got to heal it in here first. Once we heal it in here, then that's 90% of it. That's 90% of it. So if you don't know how to speak to a masculine that you feel is toxic, or you feel is scary or aggressive or driven and going to ride right over you, the first step is come with compassion. Because there is a reason why, and this brings us back to the manosphere, I know, because I have that picture in my head, but there's a reason why that masculine is that way. Okay. And we cannot separate that from us, from the feminine. This is how we bring the sacredness back. It's bringing the compassion to unify. Do not blame. Do not point the finger. That's not going to help the situation. So the downloads are just coming to me, and the divine feminine is coming to me to say, hold the grief. The grief is the separateness. The grief is the disconnection. The grief is the lost masculine. The grief is, right, everything that we long for. So what do we want? We want it back. We want it unified. We want it filled with love. We want it connected. Woof. Okay, I need a rest.
While you're resting and taking a break, Debbie reached out and said, hi. So hi back to you. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. No. I love these women.
It's a beautiful, powerful tribe around us, and we couldn't be sitting here without them. Like
Nope.
I hope that they do not underestimate how much strength we get from all of you supporting us. It does. It makes a huge, huge difference.
It does.
And so I am trying to occupy a little bit of space to give you a breather, because I know the energy it takes to keep speaking. And especially when you're talking about such intense topics, it does take a lot more energy than just, shooting the shit.
Exactly.
But I do want to make sure. So, before we got on live here today, you had a connection with your mom about this. And so the story goes on and on. There's even more to it. And so I do want you to share the next part of the story.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Keep me on track here. So, as synchronicity would have it, because there are no accidents, right? So I went to my mom's house yesterday. Thankful I had off for, the Monday, Easter Monday, they call it, right? And I said to her, in the backyard, we're sitting, and, I said, Mom, I've got a story to share with you. When I started to share all that happened to me in the kitchen, and the downloads, and the speaking in tongues, yada, yada. And she said, I have confirmation for you. And I go, you do? And so with that, she gets up and she walks in the house, and she comes back with this magnificent rosary and a story that I have it right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's about the 7 sorrows of Mary. She had been praying for 3 weeks, this rosary, with that topic in mind. So there's a whole process, the 7 sorrows, but this is talking about Mary's grief and her sorrows. And my mom has been praying in that way for 3 weeks, not only for that, but for personal, familial connection and reconnection that she always prays for. God bless you, Mom. So I appreciate those prayers too, because we all need them. But she also mentioned that she speaks in tongues. And I'm like, did I know this? Maybe I knew this a long time ago, but I forgot. And so I said to her, Mom, do you remember how to, what you say when you speak in tongues? Can you just kind of automatically do it? She goes, yeah, no problem. Give me a minute. And she popped right into it. And I go, wait a minute, let me videotape you. Videotape, it's a phone, for goodness sakes. Now I'm going back to my 1970s. So a video recording her talking or speaking in tongues. And I said, I wonder if I sounded like that, because I have no idea what I sounded like. I came home and Matthew's like, yeah, uh-huh. That's what was going on in the kitchen. So, and I said, Mom, we're entangled. Mom, the energy is so, like, the bonds are so there. They're strong. Just like Julietta, I'm so glad you said that when I texted you, that you felt me and all my grief and sorrows. And, when the energy is so strongly connected, and we experience this a lot. It may be new to people out there that you don't realize that this can happen, but you are energetically entangled. Or if you want to read about quantum entanglement, it goes along those lines of knowing that, our physical bodies is not where we stop. Okay, so coming online with we are energetic beings and how much we are expanding out into the space. We know that line of thought because we feel it. It's palpable to us. It is a feeling. So thank you, Julietta, for saying that. And I want to thank my mom, because this is kind of esoteric for her, the way I speak, but she's really coming on board with all of this. So kudos to Mom, my staunch Catholic mom who raised me, right? And she's just kind of expanding and kind of dipping her toe into this pool, and she's not turning her nose up to it, and she's not calling it like, you know who. And I want to, I thank her for that, because I didn't know it was possible. And the openness that we can be in whatever religious background we come from, to come together and find the commonalities and find out what each other has experienced in this life previous to this new knowing of something. But stay open. And with that, I unless you want to say something, I can pause for a minute.
No, I do just want to give a shout out, because we were talking about the sacred masculine, and yes. Dave showed up in the comments and is giving you some hands up in prayer. And so thank you, Dave, for tuning in. We appreciate the divine masculine being here.
So much.
Yeah.
So much so.
And I do see, like, as we're going through this work, that they are showing up. And by us healing ourselves and softening ourselves and becoming more compassionate, it's becoming a safer space for them to show up. And so, goddesses, sisters, all you women out there that are on board with us, like, really seriously, the men out there are hurting, even though they put on that tough front and, they say tough, nasty shit, but on the outside, like, that's not what they want.
No.
I mean, on the outside, that's what they're showing, but on the inside, that's not what they want. Their hearts are full of love and compassion too, but they need a safe space to be able to express and show that. Right. So we get to create the safe space for them.
We do. We do. Woof. Wow. I don't know if you're buzzing, but I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing. My hair is going to be.
So, and, what an experience for you. Like, I've had plenty of my own spiritual experiences, and they do, like, it's a lot, like, energetically, like, and I can look at you and I can see that you're still processing it and integrating it. And but I also think, like, doing the show and expressing it is part of that process.
Yes.
And as I was saying in the beginning, like, I guarantee you that you, Dorice, are not the only one that's had this kind of experience. And if anybody else out there is listening and has a similar experience to share, we would love to hear about it.
We will.
And also just for everyone to know that you're not alone, and these experiences are real. Like, sometimes people are, they do it and they push it aside, pretend it never happened. And they happen for a reason, and they happen for your growth and for for the awakening of humanity. And
Mhm.
The more we embrace it and share it and work together, the more we can become. So
Exactly. So true. So true. And thank you, Dave, for joining us, and thank you for saying um, the things about the divine masculine that is very much needed, because we don't want to exclude them. We're trying to bring them closer to us, closer to our heart, right? And also to get them to recognize what the divine feminine is, because I feel like, so it would be remiss for me not to say that the divine feminine has been erased, okay, for thousands of years. So, which brings me to the next part I'd like to just mention on this show, because it came into my awareness not too long ago, a couple of months, but as synchronicity would have it, as we always say, it was time for me to understand that Mary was not just a human being in a passive process for the divine birth. And I think that, the Bible depicts this in a way. And if this is new to you, you can research this, but there are scriptures that have not been honored and have been removed from the Holy Bible. And more people are seeking out things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, like the Gnostic Bible, the Infancy Gospel of James. There are scriptures that are being, kind of surfaced again for humanity to understand it is not just a patriarchal system that we've always had. When did we have these goddesses from ancient Egypt? How long ago have they been in existence? That you just went, Julietta. You could probably speak to that better than I can, because we have a guess. But and I'll defer to Mary for this, because there's so much information out there. So I want to get it right. Was it 3,000? Was it 30,000?
well, and that's the issue, is that there isn't a lot of clarity on that, right? It's like they do think, when you go to the current scientific text, they will tell you that it was thousands of years ago. But when they start looking at some of the newer evidence,
Yeah.
we're talking tens of thousands of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and potentially even more.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the jury is still very much out as to when all this was happening. And right now, I think we're probably in the greatest phase of all time, of like having the understanding that what we thought is history is so not accurate.
Right.
And there's a lot of research and digging to be done to get to, what is the actual history. I mean, there's text talking about beings living for tens of thousands of years. Like right now we're talking like you make it to 100 and it's like, whoa, good job. And it used to be like nothing for people to live 500, 600 years. So like all of that stuff, like there is nobody that can tell you like how long ago this stuff was. So but also we have Cheryl here had a comment.
Okay.
My computer's being a little fun. There we go. So, yeah, talking about like we're creatures of habits. We've been she's saying indoctrinated. I like the word I use all the time is we're so programmed to believe what we believe. And it really is hard work to it is about taking our power back and recognizing that we've been fed a lot of lies for a very long
time. Right.
And so many systems are set in place to really like get them set in hard into our, and it's been happening for generations. And so we talk about cellular memory, so it's, passing along from one generation to the next. And but humanity is really, more and more people are waking up, and I think about having been on the spiritual journey for 35, 40 years, however long it's been.
Yeah.
And, remembering where things were at back then, and like who I could talk to, and like never in a million years. Well, I don't know that podcast existed. So when it happened,
Yeah.
but, there wasn't much out there to be able to feel free to speak these things and these experiences. And
Yeah.
I remember in the early days, I would have, spiritual experiences, and I would share them with people. And it was for entertainment purposes,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
tell me that story about when blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't because like, oh, they recognized, you know, the wisdom, the knowledge, whatever in it. It was just like, oh, isn't that, it was like no different than watching a TV show or a movie, just like entertain us, Julietta, tell us your funny
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
And, but now it's so much easier. Like you start speaking about your experiences and, someone's going to chime in. Oh, wow, that's so interesting. You know what I experienced.
Right.
And, but it involves being vulnerable. It involves trusting. It involves taking your power back.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily an easy thing to do, but if we're going to change the style of life that we're all living out there,
Mm-hmm.
we are so much programmed that you have to work hard and you need to make as much money as you can make. And, doing all this for what? So that you get a couple weeks vacation and maybe go, sit on the beach and drink some pina colada. Like, is that really what we want in life? And then, when you think about it, there is more than enough for everybody on this planet, but there are people starving. There are people that don't have access to clean water and just the bare essentials. And that's not going to change through government, through policies, through rules, through laws. The only way for this to change is for humanity to wake up and change who we are, change our behaviors, change our beliefs, step into compassion, open our hearts, stop thinking here and start thinking, with our hearts. And
yes, exactly.
I feel like we've both been very preachy today at points.
Yeah. It's where the energy's at, for sure. And thank you for that. It always kind of comes back to that same message. No matter where we go in our conversation, it circles back around to what we need to do to accept responsibility in our day-to-day, and remember who we are, and remember we're spiritual beings having a human experience and what that means. What does that mean? And I started to say, and I don't want to leave this point out, and I feel that it needs to be just out there, because when I first realized that this was so, and I see a comment, it blew my mind, and it has to do with Mary. So just to bring this last point up, Mary was, and I'm going to pull this book up because this is how I learned about this. The Secret Life of Mother Mary by Marguerite Mary Rigoglioso. Hope I didn't butcher that, but I don't think I did. She has done 3 books on really digging into how Mary gave birth to Jesus. And she was from a long line of trained priestesses. So a lineage of trained priestesses. They were practicing. There were special, ways that they brought up these virgins to produce these, or I should say, bring forth. And it talks about avatar. So if you haven't heard that word avatar, it's like, the ascended masters. Jesus is one, Buddha, you name it, all the gurus, that, the yogis, these special divine people that were placed on this earth. This is really who birthed these beautiful souls into existence here. You have to give that divine feminine reverence, respect, gratitude. I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, speaking to the divine masculine, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a womb who carried you. So speaking about, how the divine feminine has been kind of hushed and squashed and taken out of their part in this. This is huge. This is huge. So whether or not you believe this, or you want to stick to what's been given to you in your upbringing, I could respect that too. But it's making its way into our awareness for a reason. Okay, the respect and the awareness that the divine feminine has a part in carrying these beautiful presence that comes into this world. This has to be talked about. I just was blown away by her work. I mean, she does 3 books that talks about this, and she dug into, and I'll just mention the books: The Cult of the Divine Birth in Ancient Greece and Virgin Mother Goddess of Antiquity. And she's looking into all of the traditions, kind of piecemealing, across the world, across the globe, bringing in everything she knows about divine births and how this divine maternal nurturance is happening. So, try that out for size. It's something very different. I get it, but it's time. I think it's time to give respect to some of the, divine feminine. So, okay, I think I'll stop talking there for a minute. I get so heated.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, because we've been suppressed and put down for so long, there's a lot of anger in there, and fear, and what's being asked of us right now. No, it's not easy. And is it fair? Like, what in life ever is fair? But for us to create the lives that we want here, we as women get to come forward with compassion, with forgiveness, so that we can lift all of us up. This isn't about putting the men over women, because truthfully, the world has tried that too, and it didn't work out either.
No.
It's not about one or the other. It's about both coming together. And like, yes, I acknowledge that many, many, many women have been hurt physically, mentally, emotionally by men. I get that.
Yes.
And we still, if we want to create something different, we get to come forward with kindness, compassion, love, come forward from our hearts.
Yes.
And, like I said, like, beating men up, pushing them down, pointing the finger, blaming them, like, none of that is going to get us what we want. It's not going to get the world that we want for the children to take over out there. And if we keep going the way we've been, it's just going to create more of this nonsense. And so yeah, this is like a huge wake-up call. Like, I'm knocking on everybody's head. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Come a knocking, Julietta.
Yes.
So, well, thanks. This has been quite the journey.
Well, and I want to say thank you so much for showing up vulnerably, sharing your story. I know you were a little nervous about doing that, and appreciate that so much, because that's what the world needs. It needs us to all show up, even when it's scary. Show up. There's our Jai Jagdish song, in Dreams, that we love. The line that gets me every time is, "It's all right to be afraid." Like, yes, we can be afraid and do it anyway.
Afraid. Yeah. That's what we're singing. Know that you are loved. Okay. And that's
so. But I think it's time for us to wrap this up. This has been another long show, which Long shows are great. My computer's doing weird things again. Okay,
Hmm.
I got it.
Good, good.
So, thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Like, we appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
And like I always say, like, if there's a topic you want to hear us talk about, let us know, because we are talkers and we're happy to talk.
Seems to be.
Yes.
Thank you.
And looking
Tune
forward
in.
to the next download that we get to talk about on the show.
Yes. Me too. Me too. Thank you
Uh,
for the opportunity, my dear friend. And thank you.